to get started. So if you are listening and you have $1, we're going to get into real estate today.
That's exciting stuff. Yeah, I have an idea about what might be talked about, and I'm sure I'll have a bajillion questions along the way, but I don't have a clear answer, I suppose. So I'm curious to hear. Um,
Welcome, Paul Dutton, fellow content creator. See, I like it when we have content creators too, right? Because we as content creators, it helps us to be better, well-rounded as investors, especially when we talk to our audiences, right? Of understanding, like I know Paul, you do a lot of crypto content, but it just helps us, right? It helps us when people have questions or our audience wants to get more information on other ways of investing. It really helps you become a better investor, content creator, and everything to just understand. Because in a bear market, I say this all the time, investors are made in a bear market, and it's not just about getting in at low prices of whatever asset you're talking about. It's also educating yourself and being way more knowledgeable coming out on the other end. So Zach, you want to get this started?
yeah, definitely. So, welcome everybody to another Cardinal Household Workshop. We think that educating people in the space, showing different opportunities, and really just teaching people how to take control over their own financial lives, whether that's through crypto, real estate, or any of the other avenues that we've done workshops on. I think that that is something that can never be overeducated on, I suppose, if that's a good way to put it. But yeah, I'm excited to learn. I know I'm going to be learning a lot myself. I've dabbled a little bit in educating myself on real estate. So like I've taken the education required to get your real estate license, as well as watched dozens of podcasts and videos, but I've never bit the bullet and actually purchased a property myself. So maybe that'll change soon. But Austin,
Hey,
I
this
know.
workshop for you, Zach, and everybody here, I'm going to be the bullet. All right, I'm going to give you all the motivation to bite that bullet.
Sounds good. Sounds good. But yeah, if you want to just
All
get
right,
get
so
started on an
you will get right
overview,
into it.
yeah, let's do it.
Okay, cool. So I want to give everybody a brief 1 minute summary of who I am as a real estate investor. I'm sure everybody knows who I am as far as content and stuff. But as a real estate investor, I got in at the simplest of time, like the simplest way possible to get into real estate. Welcome, Marvin. Welcome, Manny Jabs. Welcome, everybody. I got in at the simplest way possible, and that's what I'm going to tell you all about here today in real estate. I never got in with, I don't have a multi-million-dollar portfolio. I've never like did anything like Grant Cardone style, anything like that. If anybody knows who that is, he's a really big, crazy marketer in real estate. I'm not like that. I'm just an average guy that has used real estate and is actively using real estate that has successfully became, I wouldn't say financially free, but financially lean. I'll say that financially lean, where all my basic living expenses, all that stuff is literally paid for from real estate, so where I can focus on the things that I truly want to do and that's meaningful. And I don't care how old you are. I don't care how much money you have sitting in your bank right now. Every single one of you that's in this stage and that's going to listen to the recording has the ability to get into real estate today. All right. So the first thing I want to do is I want everybody to make sure you're taking some type of notes. Do something, whatever helps you like study. I don't want to tell you what to do. However, it helps you like retain knowledge. I really hope that you're doing it in this one because this isn't some hype crypto project. This is how a lot of people has attained financial freedom. This is how a lot of people have built life-changing wealth, and how in 10 years down the road, they're able to retire and get rich slow. This is not get rich quick by any means, because the best assets in the world are unsexy and boring. That's the bottom line, right? It's fun to do these crypto things, but at the end of the day, if you want to truly have a sustainable financial future for yourself, where in 10 years you can do what you want to do rather than working a 9 to 5 and hoping that you can retire at 50 to 60 years old and then maybe have a couple decades before you pass on to this life and on to whatever else you believe in. That doesn't sound appealing to me, right? So this is where real estate really does have that life-changing wealth. So the first thing that I did, and how I said this, if you just came in, I'm going to teach you all how to literally get into real estate with $1. And if you Zach kind of made a little comment of he probably knows what I'm meaning by this, and that is real estate investments trust. That's how I got into real estate before anything else. Now you can do this by literally it's the same way as buying a stock. I use M1 Finance, that's my brokerage. I started getting into real estate with that, right? And while some of you were like, "Well, Austin, that's not the cool, sexy HGTV YouTube real estate person where they bought properties and fixed." No, and it doesn't have to be that way. It can be something as simple as that. So what I did was I started putting money in REITs that collect dividends, such as if you want to look up a specific one, ticker symbol O, right? That's my favorite one. And I would collect dividends. I saved it up, saved it up, saved it up. And then I started scaling my real estate portfolio this way. But before we even get into all the nitty gritty, sexy stuff, I want to first talk about how you all need to get started. And it doesn't even start with putting that dollar anywhere. It's that you have to understand and do your research on finding what is the best way that makes you fired up to get into real estate. Okay, so first you got to just fix your basic budgeting. That's the first thing you need to do is when you're at your job, if you're living paycheck to paycheck, you don't even need to be thinking about investing. You need to handle that budgeting and seeing what you're overspending on and what you're underspending on, which is your assets that you need to invest in. So that is where you really need to understand that you need to make sure you're not putting money into things you truly don't need to put money into. Have subscriptions you don't need to be having subscriptions, all that basic unsexy stuff. Once you get your basic budgeting where you can invest a large portion of your income every single month, that is when you can start to take that first leap. A lot of people want to take that first leap when they don't even have a financial foundation to get into real estate for. And if you don't have that foundation, right, it's like when we see all these crypto projects, if they don't have a solid foundation to build all these innovations on, they're going to fail. Okay, they're just strictly going to fail. We've seen that time and time again. We just seen that in this past week. So the things you need to tackle. Now, this is where I said if you take notes, if you learn by notes, this is the first thing I want you to take down. Okay, so the things you need to set in place before even looking into real estate. Number one, credit. Your credit score is going to help you tremendously with your profit margins because your credit score depends on your interest rate, and your interest rate depends on how much money you have in expenses each month. So you need to make sure your credit score is solid. Okay. And I'm speaking on American terms here. So if you're not from America, I do apologize. I do not have info or real estate expertise or knowledge or experience in Europe, Canada. Those are the two main countries I see a lot of people coming from, but UK, any other place, right? Any other place that's not America, I don't know. But it does, I'm sure in some sense it does apply to other countries. I just don't know the specifics, but I'm sure you still need a good credit score in other countries, blah, blah, blah. The second thing, and this kind of plays hand in hand with basic budgeting, I want you to save at least $8,000 to $10,000 liquid. Now that may sound crazy, right? But just stick with me. You're going to spend 8 to 10 grand, not spend. You're going to save 8 to 10 grand liquid. That's putting it in a savings account. That's not putting it into Dogecoin. That's not putting it into the next, penny stock that's going to go to the moon. That is putting it somewhere that you just are not going to touch it. You don't need it. That's doomsday scenario money. Okay. The third thing is your mindset. You need to understand that real estate is a get rich slow method. It is not get rich quick. You're going to have, when you start doing your research on YouTube and reading all these books, you're going to see, just like how you see in crypto, all these predatory ads and predatory blah, blah, blah about all these moon tokens. You're going to see the same stuff in real estate. You're going to see people selling courses for thousands of dollars a month on learning stuff that you can just learn in a book or learn on YouTube. So you need to make sure you just eliminate that noise. Everything you need to know about real estate is free and online. There's nothing really that you need unless you want to have a mentor or something, and even that, a lot of it's scammy. Nothing is really you have to pay for. So fix your mindset. Understand that this is so polar opposite of crypto and DeFi, that you need to make sure that this is something when you get into, you're having that level expectations, right? And this is again playing with that foundation. The next thing, all right, this is number four. Number four on your notes here is location. All right, location. So many people get this messed up when they get into real estate. All they hear is these flashy YouTubers and these podcasts, and they read these books, they get pumped up, and they want to get invested into real estate. But they have no idea where in the world they want to put their money into, or where they want to buy their properties. They just know they want to get into it. Okay, so stop getting that flashy, object syndrome and getting all excited, and just find a couple locations that fits your goals. And you're going to know how here in a minute. So you need to understand location, location, location. You hear this all the time in real estate. That is how it determines your property values. That's what determines your cash flow. That's what determines your appreciation with your property. Location is very real estate. Real estate is very location sensitive. Number 5, what type of investor do you want to be? We kind of talked about it earlier, but this is a specific one. All right, so write that down. Anytime I write stuff down, it kind of psychologically embeds it into my brain, and it makes me want to further capitalize on that, right? So it kind of makes me a little invested. So that's why I say that. So write down, what type of investor do you want to be, right? Do you have experience in contracting? Do you have a family in contracting where you may want to be more hands-on? You want to fix and flip properties, or you have time after work where you want to drive through the neighborhoods and look for wholesaling. And if you don't know what these terms are, I'm going to explain them. So it's okay. Or do you want to be more passive, where you want to invest in syndications or crowdfund in real estate, stuff like fundrise.com? Or like, what type of real estate investor do you want to be? And that kind of plays in a line with what part of real estate fires you up. What part of real estate kind of like has that passion. So that's number 5. Number 6, this kind of plays again with what number 5 is. That's what type of real estate do you want? Okay, so what type of real estate is, do you want to be the best single family home real estate investor? Do you want to be this small multifamily home investor? Do you want to invest in apartments? Do you want to invest in condos, manufactured homes, trailer parks, RV parks? I mean, there's so many different types of real estate out there. You need to get really, really good at either one or two of them. Okay. The people that are generalists generally suck. Okay. That's just how it is. Most, most of the time, the successful people that you see in real estate are hypersensitive on a couple different types of real estate. For me personally, I got my feet wet into single family homes, small multifamily, and I talked about on another podcast, I did a syndication, right? So generally, I suck right now in real estate. I'm still trying to find personally. That's why I said I'm not a real estate, multimillionaire or anything like that. I'm still finding what I want to do, but in that, I'm investing to see what I like. So you got to really play with what you want to do, and that's how I did it, right? And now I'm starting to learn that I personally, as an investor, I like more hands-off syndications, apartment complexes where I can scale my portfolio quickly, versus the headache of a single family home, right? That's what I like more. Okay, so the next thing is, that's number 7, is understanding your local market. Okay, remember how in number 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Remember in number 4 we talked about location where you want to invest. Okay, now this is getting even more into that one, where understanding your local market. Now, what I mean by local market, so if you're taking notes, right, do little sub bullets. Okay, so understanding your local market. What is the price per square foot of the properties that you want? Because the price per square foot of a single family home could be different than a price per square foot of a small multifamily home, which is a 2 to 4 unit, or a 5+ unit. You know what I mean? So when you get into the nitty gritty, you need to understand that each one of these has specific parameters that you need to be specific with. Because if you're talking about America here, if you're looking in Memphis, Tennessee, the price per square foot for a single family could be, say, $60 a square foot. But then you look somewhere in Maryland at a single family, and the price per square foot could be 120, because it's just a higher cost of living. So that's where you need to be very hyper focused on what locations you want to invest in, so you can become specialized in those areas and you can be experts in those areas. Because if you're just saying you want to invest in real estate but you have no idea where you want, you could be burning money if you even do try to invest in those areas, because you just don't know what the heck a good deal looks like. Because you could, you know what I mean? Like just that Memphis and Maryland example I gave you, you could be in Maryland thinking that 100 or a 200 square foot or $200 per square foot property is a great deal, but you don't know that that's actually super overpriced. So you need to be very, very specific. So in addition to like price per square foot, talk to local contractors. What are the good local contractors that people look on Yelp.com, look on Glassdoor, look on all these different websites that rate local contractors. Talk to property managers. Okay, so find property managers in those areas that are really highly rated, and how to do that, right? Go to local real estate meetups. What property managers do they use? What ones do they say stay away from? Don't even touch them with a 10-foot pole. Go to those property managers, say, hey, do you have a list of vendors that you use that I just want to, see about? And in those vendors, they're going to give you general contractors, subcontractors, carpenters, builders. Like, they can really give you really good insights on who the good players are in those areas. So that's what I mean when I say understand your local market to a T. Okay, so now that you got all of those bullet points. All right, that is what you need to see. So see right there, we already talked for about 15 minutes and we didn't even get into real estate yet. We didn't even get to the sexy part, because you need to build a foundation of all these different things and understand who you are as an investor before you even touch redfin.com, zillow.com, or talking to whoever about a property deal. You need to specialize each one of those bullet points we just talked about before you even spend $1. All right. So now that you build a solid foundation, before I get into the next point, Zach or anybody else, does anybody have any questions that I don't want people just to wait until the end?
I think that's, at least on my end, I don't have any questions. If anybody has any, they can always type them in the AMA questions channel. But
I did see Pi. So Pi says, but I can't legally get into real estate. So if you were talking about like because of your age or something, um, let me know. I don't know. Oh no, I'm 16. So you can still open a brokerage account. So see, but look at that. You gotta understand all the resources that are out there with real estate. Real estate is not just buying a physical brick and mortar home. Okay, so if you want to start out with $1, like I said, and we're about to get into that, is get into something like open up an M1 Finance account or a Robinhood account or any of these brokerages. It doesn't matter. Webull, there's tons of them, and you get into that, put $1 in, $10, whatever you can afford to invest with, right? And you get into these REITs. Oh, like I said, always my favorite one. But look up your local REITs, because I know in Europe and other countries they have REITs that Americans can invest in and vice versa. So just look up your local, or not local, look up your country specific REITs that you can invest in, that you get dividends from, that you can regularly invest in, and treat it kind of like a little piggy bank, right? Like a little savings account. So you can get into real estate at 16 years old, right? That's an easy one. And I don't know the legalities of opening up a brokerage. I know you can have, as long as you have like your parents' permission and they sign off on you, and then they create a sub account for you. Like, there's so many different ways, right? And I don't know about you all, but if I had a kid, because I don't have a kid, I had a kid come up to me and say, "Hey, Dad, I want to open up a brokerage account, bro." I'd be the most proud dad in the world. So I don't see, I don't see a parent like turning that down. But Ace says, "Will this be recorded?" Yes, yes, absolutely. I hope everything's okay. All right, so we're gonna get into the next little point here. Welcome, welcome. I see people joining. I just can't see the specifics, so thank you for joining. If you just came. All right, so the specifics as far as education goes, everything I have ever learned has been from YouTube and books. Okay, and books specifically, or and podcasts. So I listen to Bigger Pockets podcasts. They got two different ones. They got a rookie podcast, and then they got another podcast that's just called Bigger Pockets, and that's it. So it's called Real Estate Rookie and Bigger Pockets. That's the two podcasts. And as far as books goes, the only books I've ever read as far as real estate, they're by Brandon Turner. If you just search Brandon Turner, he'll be the first one to pop up. I've read a ton of him. David Perret, he has a good book out there. But really, it's a lot of it's YouTube. I don't really like reading a lot. I like audiobooks. So YouTube is where you can find a lot of the information that you want, right? You can look up, literally Google anything, and there will be a video or several videos on how these influencers have negotiated this problem, done this deal. If you want specific ones, Chandler David Smith is a really good one that I used to watch. Ryan Pineda, he talks about a lot of multifamily stuff. I think is pretty useful. I don't like a lot of his course stuff. It looks a little weird. And then Meet Kevin has tons of amazing videos out there on just everything real estate, whether if you want to be a real estate agent or a real estate investor, and those two are different things, so don't get those confused. He has a lot of good info on that. So when it comes to what we talked about, building your foundation of what type of real estate investor do you want to be, there are several different ways to invest in real estate. Number one, okay, so if you're taking notes, here's another worth thing of noting down and doing more research on is wholesaling. Okay, I'm not going to get every single little strategy here or way of investing. I'm not going to spend an hour because I could spend an hour talking about each one of these. First one is wholesaling. Wholesaling is the most beginner friendly but time intensive. Okay, that's the con. Pro, it's beginner friendly because you don't need literally hardly any money, if not any money at all, to make $5,000, $10,000 on a single deal. And I'll tell you how. So essentially what wholesaling is, and that again, this is here in America. I don't know how Europe and Canada and all those other countries, I don't know how you all do things with wholesaling. You would have to Google that for your specific laws. Now, here in America, what you can do is if I know real estate investors, are wanting to find off-market properties, and what an off-market property is a property that is not listed online that anybody can see. Now, they get these properties, a wholesaler does, through driving around. That's called driving for dollars. You see a property that has plywood on the windows, or the grass isn't kept, or anything like that. You see a property that's obviously not being taken care of. You write those addresses down. You do what's called skip tracing. Okay, so write that down if you're taking notes. Skip tracing. And what you do is you take these addresses of properties that look like they're not being taken care of. You find the owners of the property's phone numbers through skip tracing. Then you take those skip trace numbers, you get in contact with the owners, and you see if what is their problem? Why do they have those properties sitting there? What is the problem, and how can you be the solution? Okay, you don't want to be predatory. You don't just want to say, "Hey, are you selling your property?" No, you gotta kind of actually be a human being. Find why this property's there, get a little information on it, and understand exactly why that property is the way that it is and why they have it. Then you see if you can get them under contract to sell the property. Okay, so say you ran the numbers and you found that this property could be worth $100,000 in your local market if it was fully fixed up. Okay, and how you would know that, right, is you would take if say this property that was, you found, say it had 2 bedrooms, 1 bath, and you look online and you find 2 bedroom, 1 bath with similar square foot, and you see that property is going for $100,000 fully fixed up. You're like, okay, cool. So how much does it need in work? Okay, so now you find just rough numbers. Say it needs $20,000 worth of remodeling, rehab, whatever. So you would see that now you're down to $80,000. So if you subtract $100,000 from $20,000, that's $80,000. Now, banks or hard money lenders, anybody that wants to get into real estate, they usually do 70 to 80% loan to value. Okay, so if the value is $100,000, they're only going to give you $70 to $80,000 worth of that. So again, I'm not going to go super into wholesaling, but at the end of the day, because I'm getting a little too into it now, at the end of the day, wholesaling is I get that property under contract. Okay, so I get that property, and it's a contract agreement saying that this owner is willing to give me a property under this price. Now I can take that contract and I can go to a real estate investor that either fix and flips homes, that fixes them and then rents them out, whatever they want to do. And say I get this property under contract for $50,000, right? Because it's broken, it needs remodeling, whatever. I talked them into $50,000. Now I tack on a finder's fee, okay, or a wholesaling fee, whatever you want to call it, and I sell that contract to a real estate investor for $55,000, right? So I have that agreement with the owner for $50,000, but then I sell that same contract, right? That I sell that contract to an investor for $55,000. So I pocket that $5,000 difference, and the real estate investors know this. Wholesalers are very, very well known out there, and it's kind of just like a little premium for the real estate investor to not have to put in the work to find these off market deals. That's where wholesalers come in. Next one is buy and hold. Okay, so this is another little bullet point. Buy and hold is exactly what it sounds like. You buy properties, whether you need to fix them up from a wholesaler, like we just talked about, or it's a turnkey property, right? You got turnkey properties where you got companies that fix and flip homes, and then they sell them to investors instead of people that want to live in them, right? They already have tenants set in place. They do property management. They do everything. They do all the work. Okay, so that's buy and hold. Now, the pro is it's a buy and hold property if it's turnkey. The con is you're usually buying at market value, so you don't really have a lot of built-in equity in the home as soon as you get in there. Next one's fix and flipping. Everybody knows this. They've seen HGTV 1,000 times probably, and they've heard of fix and flipping. Simply put, you find a property that needs a lot of work done. You get it for a really good deal. You add the value to the home, and you sell it for a profit margin. Short-term rental. So short-term rental is types of properties where you've commonly heard the company Airbnb, but there's several hosting companies out there. That's why if you're talking to like a real estate investor or something, you'll normally hear them say short-term rental or STR instead of Airbnbs, because Airbnb is just the company and short-term rental is the act of investing in that. So short-term rentals, the pro is you get a ton of cash flow, but it's a little riskier because with a buy and hold, you lock these tenants in for 1 to 2 year contracts. You know that each month you're going to get X amount in your monthly, income. Whereas with a short-term rental, you're basically kind of like a hotel, right? Where you have to have people booking your properties, and then that property needs to be booked for X amount of days out of the month to pay your mortgage, and then the rest is cash flow. So there's a little more risk there, but if you know your location, like we talked about earlier, you know where short-term rentals are going for, you know all this information, and you've worked with the experts, you'll know that the market that you're looking at could be a short-term rental potential. So the pro, again, it's high cash flow. I mean, you can get double, if not triple. I've seen some properties get triple per month what a normal buy and hold could do. But the con, like I said, is that you could have vacancy, right? And that vacancy could happen for anything. Next one is syndications. Syndications is something where, kind of like what I did, where it's, I would say 70 to 80% is open to institutional accredited investors. Accredited investors, you have to have a net worth of $1 million or make a lot of money. I keep forgetting the income threshold, but you got to make a lot of, like, multiple six figures per a certain amount of time frame to be considered an accredited investor. So a lot of those syndication deals are only open to accredited investors. There is a select few type of syndication deals where people like myself, retail investors, right, can actually get into those deals. That is all with networking. Okay, so again, like we talked about at the beginning of this is where you build that foundation and really be educated into real estate, where you're networking, be enveloped in the community, in your local community, in your online community within real estate. Network with people, okay? Add value in some type of way to the people you talk to. Get to know them. Be friends. There's millions of people out there that are getting started in real estate every single day, and you can be one of them where you meet those and you establish friendships and relationships and see where you can go, right? I got into my syndication deal, I say this all the time, based on the networking that I did. So syndication can happen through accredited investors, or if you know the people, right? If you have a working relationship with these people, sometimes you can get into syndication deals without being an accredited investor. The last one here is crowdfunding. Crowdfunding is, you usually see, it's kind of like syndications, but it's open to the public. Okay, so that's, I use a website all the time, fundrise.com, as an example of where you can, I think it's like a minimum of like $50, $500, had a 5 in it, but there's a minimum, and you get access kind of like the same way with syndications, right? Where you just put money in there, you collect dividends, and that's about it. And the company, something like Fundrise, takes that money and puts it into all these different types of properties. Now, those are the types of ways of investing into real estate. Now, here's where it gets even crazier, right? Within those types of investing into real estate, you have different strategies in those types, right? So you have BRRRR, buy, rehab, refinance, repeat, where you buy the property, you rehab the property, you refinance the property, so you get the cash out of the property, and then you get a new loan based on the new value, and then you rent out the property, and you take the cash that you got from the bank and buy another home. So that home bought you another home, and then you just rinse and repeat, right? So that's one strategy. Another one is 1031 exchange, where if you have a property and you've met the 1031 requirements, again, I want you to take notes so you all can do more research. I'm just presenting this to you, and then it's up to you to get way more info on each one of these. So a 1031 exchange here in America is, if I don't want to pay capital gains tax on a sale of a property, I can level up, right? So that's what I like to make the little joke with. I'm leveling up my investor portfolio by, if I have a property that's worth $300,000 and I sell it, but I don't want that capital gains tax. I don't want to give the government a dollar of my money. They don't deserve it. I do. I did the work. So I found a property that's say $400,000. It has to be more expensive than the property you have, and it's going to be I'm going to take that money, plug it into that property. So I am no longer liable for that capital gains right now, but at the back end, so this is the con, right? Whenever you want to fully realize your profit, where you liquidate the property you did the 1031 with, you then have to pay the capital gains tax. So it's kind of like just pushing your tax liability to the end, but it's really good to start out and really scale your real estate portfolio. House hacking, number 3. House hacking is the most beginner friendly. I know I said wholesaling is, but this is like number 1.2 beginner friendly way of getting into real estate. House hacking is when you literally buy a property, you take advantage of the residential loan requirements. So here in America, you can get a residential loan, which is if you're a veteran, VA loan like myself. If you're not a veteran, you can get a USDA loan, which is almost the same thing as a VA loan, where you get 0% down. You don't have to put little to any money into the property as a down payment because you're living in that property. And these types of really beneficial loans, they can apply up to a 4-unit property, right? So a duplex, a triplex that's 3 units, or a quadplex, which is 4 units. Okay, so it's like 4 livable units, and all you do is share a wall. So it's kind of like a little mini apartment. That's all it is. And those residential loans will cover those types of properties. So you can house hack where you rent out those units, or if you have a single family home, say you're in a market where small multifamily homes are just not a thing. You can take this and you can rent out your rooms. So you can look for a 2 to 3 bedroom property or a garage, an indoor garage. I've seen people do this before, where they have an indoor garage and they convert it into a livable space. They take out the door, they put in a drywall, and then they just put in a little kitchenette or something, a bathroom, whatever, and it's like a livable space. You can buy a 2-3 bedroom house and just rent out the 1 or 2 bedrooms if you're okay with roommates. And if you don't have a family, if you're single, that's usually what those are good for. But if you have a family or whatever, most of the time if you want a house hack, they do a duplex, triplex, or quadplex. And then hybrid hacking. I made this one up. I don't even know if this is an actual term. I just made this one up. So it's kind of like house hacking, but you're doing Airbnbs instead of long-term tenants. So say you're going on vacation for a week, or say you're free on the weekends or whatever, right? You can list your rooms, because you can do this on Airbnb and stuff. You can list these rooms out for just a short-term rental. So if someone wants to stay there just for a weekend, or they want to stay for whatever, and they want a cheaper alternative to hotels, you can rent out your rooms and still get a little bit of cash flow that way. All right, so those are the different strategies. And again, there's many more, but these are some that I've either been exposed to or I've kind of had information on. I'm going to do a quick scan of the questions real quick before I get into how you can get into real estate, starting with $1, scaling it all the way up to multiple thousands of 6 figures, adding to your net worth. So let me see. So I shouldn't or can't invest unless I check mark points 1 through 8. Yes. Bright zone. Yes, that is an amazing point there. Yes. So those little bullet points I gave at the beginning, make sure you understand all those, okay? Because that is what the 1% of people that are successful in I wouldn't say 1%. There's a lot of successful people in real estate. But that's what the percentage of people that are successful in real estate, they take the time to do that, right? Because that's boring. That's unsexy. That's not fun. That's not something fun to talk about where, yeah, dude, I read 5 books on real estate and I became an expert in area code XYZ. No, you want to talk about, yeah, dude, I made $10,000 on this deal, blah, blah, blah. But that sexy stuff happens when you do the boring stuff first, right? So that boring stuff is what you need to do absolutely first. Chris says, any chance we get a to-do list / list of things to do first? Oh yeah, I can make that into a cool little Word document at the end here and just give it to people. I know some places like San Diego, LA, STRs aren't possible. Absolutely. See, again, that's why you got to know your location. Some cities set limits on numbers allowed within the city. Yeah, absolutely. I think then you start. So I shouldn't say don't have $8,000 to $10,000. Then I can't invest. Oh, okay, yeah. So you're saying if you don't have $8,000 to $10,000, I'm not saying you can't. I'm talking about brick and mortar real estate, right? So brick and mortar real estate, as far as like getting into a property, yes. And I'm telling you why right now. I'm glad you said that, Bright Zone. So why you want to start with at least 8 to 10 grand liquid. One, you're practicing exactly what we talked about in the beginning. Okay, you're practicing basic budgeting skills. You're practicing sacrificing that gratification right now, and you're delaying it, delayed gratification. You're taking money instead of buying fancy things, fun things, putting it into crazy expensive or crazy risky assets. You're being disciplined by blocking out the noise. And however you were able to do that, you saved 8 to 10 grand. If you all watch my video, my YouTube video that my most recent one that I published 2 weeks ago, you will understand this. Your first $10,000, it's not clickbait. Your first $10,000 is the most critical in your whole financial journey. And if you understand each milestone that I break apart in that video, I promise you, you will be a better investor overall. Not real estate, but a better investor overall. So that kind of plays hand in hand with that video, but it also more specifically with real estate, that 8 to 10 grand, other than that mental milestones that you're making, that 8 to 10 grand is going to have to go into that property. So even if you use residential loans or residential, things, usually have what's called closing costs. Okay. And that's what a lot of people forget. So even though, say, I got into a property and I've done this before, it's 0% down. I don't have to put a single dollar down payment on a property. You usually still have to encumber closing costs unless you negotiate it in the deal, because everything's negotiable. Unless you negotiate in the deal that the seller kind of covers the closing cost or portion of it, usually you have to come out of pocket anywhere from 2 to 5% of the purchase price, right? And so, and that's kind of like how you're like calculating the deal and stuff. But 8 to 10 grand is usually more than enough that you need to cover any closing costs. And all closing costs is like a conglomeration of all these different little paperwork fees and documentation fees, title fees, all these different little fees that add up to around 2 to 5% of the purchase price of the property. So that's what the closing costs are. And again, that's why I said 8 to 10 grand. It's more than enough, and you're becoming more disciplined to where you can take that 8 to 10 grand and use it for other things and for that property that you just got into. Great question.
Yeah, and if I can actually just step in and say that another big piece that I think is the biggest downfall of people that want to go into real estate or investing in general is that they don't plan for things to go wrong, and they don't mitigate risks. So a big reason why Austin is saying have that $8,000 to $10,000 emergency fund is, and you need to pay for those closing costs. You have to pay for an unexpected repair. You have to have a cushion so that when something does go wrong, because it's only a matter of time, you're going to have stuff go wrong and go south. It's not necessarily going to be a massive thing. It could be, but little bumps in the road are going to happen, and mitigating yourself so you don't get into a really sticky situation down the road is something that's very crucial. And I think even Warren Buffett, I believe this is his rule of investing, is the number one rule is don't lose money. So if you can avoid losing money, then that means you're only going to gain money. And then I think that's just another crucial thing to plan for. But I'll hand it back over to you, Austin.
Oh no, that's absolutely. I'm glad you said that. Yeah, and that's again another like it helps to have those buffers, because when people get into real estate and they get into it too lean, and by too lean I mean like their profit margins are razor thin. They're trying to make this deal work because they want to feed their ego. They want to tell their family they're into real estate. They want to tell their friends they're into real estate. They want to talk about it. That you can't let that ego get in the way of just making money, bro. You can't let your emotions get into that. You can't let any of this, right? Real estate is the most unsexy thing, like that is also really sexy to talk about, because it's fun to talk about the money that we make, but it's the same thing with crypto, right? It's fun to talk about the money we make in these crazy moonshot tokens or just passive income plays like I show every week. But what's unsexy is, again, if you're a Cardinal crew member, you would see this week my passive income was significantly lower than most weeks, and that's the unsexy stuff, because those unsexy things are I use them as learning opportunities instead of just letting it be like, oh my gosh, what's happening, right? So it's the same thing with real estate. The unsexy part here is just understanding who you are as an investor, having a buffer, so saving up a decent chunk of change, because when you're a beginner, you're going to make mistakes. You're going to not understand how to handle a maintenance issue. You're not going to understand how to pay for this, blah, 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 blah. Like you're going to have mistakes, but that's how you learn and grow. So that way you can become a better real estate investor overall. You're going to have them. You got to accept that. You're going to have these mistakes, but that's why I say 8 to 10 grand, because 8 to 10 grand is going to easily cover that closing costs. And it's also going to have that stupid tax. Okay, because when you're a beginner, you're going to have stupid taxes. You're going to have learning tuition. And by learning tuition, I mean, making mistakes and paying for it. And that's going to be easily enough based on my experience. Let me see here. Have you ever used leverage bank loans to invest into real estate products like REITs? Not REITs. And I would highly recommend not doing that because, like I said, REITs are basically like, it's the same way of buying stocks, right? So I wouldn't, because when I buy stocks and REITs, I buy them for long term, right? I invest it, I put it in my dividend stock portfolio, and I just let there sit, collect dividends. I don't sit there and day trade it or anything like that, right? So, and what you're kind of referring to is like buying them on margin or, using leverage to buy that. I highly would suggest not using that. The only time I use leverage in real estate is buying brick and mortar real estate. Learning fee, yeah. Bye. All right. So if you are taking notes, you're going to 100% want to take this note. I'm going to share I can't share my screen because Discord loves not letting you do that on stage. But what I'm going to do is take a snipping tool here, a little screenshot. And this is I want to preface this before people look at this and say, wow, real estate's easy. I'm going to get into it because I can get rich so easily over the course of 10 years. This is conservative numbers for one, because I never teach people about real estate and I'm like hyping it up, right? This is very, very conservative numbers. And with that, this is just kind of like a way to look long term into real estate. Each one of these deals could have different numbers, scenarios, tenants. Like this could be so all over the place, but this is just an idea. Okay, this is just an idea of what to look at. Okay, so if you're on the stage or if you're in the stage, make sure you go over to AMA questions. I'm going to share this, and I want everybody to pull this up as they're taking notes and as they're listening to me, because it's going to make a lot more sense than me just talking. All right, so if you open that up, what you're looking at here, this is the most boring, unsexy, as little time-consuming possible way to get into real estate and scale a real estate portfolio possible. All right, so what you're looking at is property number one. Now, remember what I said earlier. Now that you have the basic tools of understanding that you have these cool little things called residential federal-backed loans, such as a VA loan, USDA loan, FHA loan, okay? You have these different loan products that the bank will give you, more money than I've seen in my entire life. You have these loans that the bank will give you because you are wanting to live in this property. Okay, key word, do not commit mortgage fraud. You will go to prison. It is a felony. Do not say, okay, you're going to live in this property, not live in the property, and get the benefits of a federal loan, or you have intentions to. Don't do it. These are properties that you are going to live in for a year, okay? So a year, and an expectation number two. Do not get emotionally tied to these properties. Do not buy these properties thinking this is going to be the property you grow old in with your significant other, have children. But no, these are going to be real estate investing properties, okay? So property number one. So when you're doing this, right, this is also, you've already practiced delayed gratification with saving up this money, this 8 to 10 grand. See, you're always going back on your little milestones and feeding off of it and building on it. So now you're delaying gratification by, you're not getting the fanciest property in the world. Okay. I've never lived in just like a property where I was like, oh my God, I could see myself living here for years. No. And that's for a reason, because I don't need to. I don't need this big fancy property right now, because in the future, my wealth is going to be significantly bigger, where I have that freedom to choose that if I want to. Okay. So property number one, that's highlighted in blue, and you'll see why these are matching colors here in a minute. So property number one, I'm using average values. Okay. So the average home price here in America. And again, this is why I say this is just an idea. This is not specific, and this should not be used to look at it that way, because property is location specific. Okay, so a $200,000 property in California could probably buy you a cardboard box. Okay, but a $200,000 property in Tennessee could probably actually buy you a pretty decent sized home, or Texas could probably buy you a pretty decent sized home too. So it just depends on where you live. Okay, so these are just rough numbers. And again, you don't have to invest in your backyard. You can buy anywhere. So property number one, you want to live in properties 1 through 4. So property number one, you're going to rinse and repeat this for 4 years. Okay, and again, this is yeah. Austin knows how to use it. So make sure you just use these as idealistic numbers. You're not using these as like set in stone. Property number one, the value is $200,000. Down payment, let's just say $3,000 and $6,000. And again, that $6,000 is roughly the closing cost. Okay, this isn't like money that you have to put into the home, or if you do, right? So see, the loan amount is $194,000. So that's taken into consideration. Say, and again, like I said, I base my numbers very conservative. So I'm basing it on, oh my gosh, you had to put some money into the property, even though you probably don't have to. Okay, so say the loan amount's $194,000 based on you put $6,000 into the property. Over the course of 4 years, okay, so year 4 there, you have built with an average 2% appreciation per year. And again, if you, here in America, 2%, 3%, 4%, I've seen properties appreciate year over year 5 to 6%, right? I'm being very conservative. So at a basic 2% appreciation with your loan to pay down, roughly net, you're going to have about $13,000 in equity. What is equity? Equity is money you have built into that home after paying that loan off for X amount of time. It's just money that is in that property that you own versus the bank. Okay, so if you have right off the bat, just for just number purposes, right off the bat, when you buy that home and you put $6,000 into it, you have $6,000 in equity. You have, just think of it like you're taking your money out of your wallet and you're putting it in the walls. Austin coming back home from the military. But yeah, you're using your home and you're using it as a piggy bank. Think of it like that. Now, cash flow, okay? Again, you've practiced house hacking. You've either had a roommate or you had a small multifamily home that you rented a unit out with. Guess what this is? Cash flow is $9,500 in 4 years. This is conservative numbers, my friends. $200 a month. Okay, $200 a month. Where's my trusty calculator here? 95 200 times 12 times 4. There we go. Yeah. Okay. So I even took 100 off. That's what I did because I was trying to be conservative. So it's actually $9,600 in 4 years if you do $200 a month. But I mean, I've house hacked before and made $400 to $500 in cash flow. And cash flow, okay, cash flow is money you have after paying expenses, after paying your mortgage, after paying your water bill, electricity bill, all those little expenses you get. That's cash flow. Okay, so that's why I'm saying $200 a month, because I know everybody here is used to crypto, and it's like $200. I make $200 a day in Doge Elon token, right? No, this is real estate. So in cash flow, that's the culmination of money that, say you just made a bank account, you put that $200 aside every single, insurance and taxes, that's everything. So what we call in real estate, it's called PITI, okay? PITI, that's principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. So zone 2 said insurance and taxes. Principal, interest, taxes, and insurance, that's the 4 main expenses that you have every single month of the property. But here in cash flow world, you have $9,500 you just put into a bank with that equity building up for 4 years. And at the end of year 4, from that one property, you're going to have, from equity and cash flow, $22,500. Property number 2, same scenario. See how I have year 5? So what this is every single year you moved into another property and you use the residential loan. And you're like, Austin, how many times can you use these residential loans? Usually you can use up to 10, like you can take up to 10 like properties here in America before you start and get into like, oh my gosh, I have too much debt to my name, whatever. So that's usually, you can use these products for around 8 to 9 to 10 properties per individual, right? So if you're married, a lot of people, they want to put the property in their names, right? They want to do both them and their spouse on the title, but that's actually really bad if you want to be a real estate investor, because you could use 8 to 10 of her properties for her name, and then 8 to 10 properties under your name, and now you're getting like the best of both worlds. Please don't get married just to invest in real estate. Love your person, but in property number two, right? So at the end of 4 years of owning that property, which here we're at in 22 grand, 22.5. Okay, so this is just a basic scenario. Again, you could have a property that's 250, a property that's 180. These are just averages. So at the end of the fourth year, you now have four properties under your name. Remember, I said this is get rich slow. This is not get rich quick. You're gonna be like 4 years. Oh my god. So 4 years, you have four properties that you got into for little to no money. Okay, so you want to talk about degen returns? Have you all ever heard of an infinity return, an infinite return, an infinite APY? That's what real estate can actually provide. Every single one of my properties that I've done this with, if you want to ask me like what my return is, it's infinite, because I've already made my money back. It's house money, right? We call it house money. We call it a moon bag. So yeah, auto rebasing. Yeah, my properties are rebasing. No, but these properties are infinite returns because you only put very little money down thanks to the residential loans. So now you have four properties under your belt. You have very little money into, and also keep in mind, these 4 years you have a job. It's not like you just quit and you're a full-time real estate investor. No, these are just properties, and you're making money. You're still practicing budgeting techniques. You're still putting money aside. You're still saving money. You're still doing everything you practiced at the beginning. So don't think these are just static numbers and you have no other money in your net worth. All right. Isn't putting money under someone else's name tax evasion? It is not. I mean, if it's your significant other, absolutely not. Like if I'm married, and this is again here in America, I can't speak for for every other country, but here in America, you can absolutely, like, if my significant other, if we're here, and my girlfriend or my wife, whatever, but wife, not girlfriend, wife, but I have a girlfriend. That's why I'm saying that. So once we become married, and I'm already like maxed out on my debt, right? If my wife has the money, or if I want to give her the money, if I want to gift her money or whatever, right? She can take that property under her name, and we can build up a portfolio under her name as well. So, it's again, that's at your comfort level, but that's not tax evasion doing that. Now at year 4, each one of these properties that's color coded is going to pay for a rental property through the equity and the cash flow that you set aside because you're smart, and you had that money sitting there. And these are static numbers. If you put a money in a high interest savings account, you're probably going to have a few $100 just sitting there in interest or whatever. So again, that's what's crazy about these conservative numbers. So you see property number 1 here that's highlighted in blue. That property, through the equity and the cash flow, is going to pay almost everything you need for that rental property. Okay, that rental property for $30,000. Now, this is where rental properties 1 through 4, this is where that stereotype comes into play. So a lot of people think they need tons of money to get into real estate. No, that's only for rental properties. Okay, so you have what's called a conventional loan. A conventional loan is where you do usually need about 20% of the property value. And you're going to be like, well, Austin, why is these rental properties 150 versus $200,000? Well, a $200,000 property usually are the ones that you live in and you're looking for value and cash flow, all that, but that's a whole other conversation. A rental property, something you're just putting money at and you're going to rent out, you're not going to live in or anything like that. I want cash flow. Okay, so usually in my market, 150 grand will buy a decent cash flowing property, right? I've even seen some for 100 grand. So that's my market, and that's where I'm talking about from my experience. So 150 grand, 20% of 150 grand is going to be 30 grand. Now you see on year 4 here from that property number 1, you have built up equity of 13,000 plus 9,500, which is 22,500. You have almost the entire down payment for that first rental property. And keep in mind, like I said, you have a 9-to-5 job, you have whatever that provides you income. You didn't quit your job, and then all you have to do is pay the difference in that down payment. Again, this is conservative and this is static. So that number could be less, that number could be more, depending on the property you find. And again, you're never going to find property. You're not going to find all 4 properties exactly at 150 G's. That's just not going to happen. But this is just for visualization purposes. All right, so now you've paid the difference because you understand how to delay gratification. You understand how to save 8 to 10 grand. You're capitalizing and you're slowly scaling up every lesson that you learned. And now that's going to appreciate for 2%. That's going to cash flow at least a minimum. And this is my actual true number. I want at a minimum $200 per month in cash flow for any real estate property I do, right? So that number has to work. Okay, so at a minimum, all my properties cash flow 500 and above right now. Okay, so it is possible to do 200. That's just very conservative. So right now, at a minimum, you're going to cash flow 200 per month. 200 per month brings you 2,400 a year. Okay, and now you're just going to rinse and repeat every 4 years. Property number two is going to pay for property number two, or rental property number two. Property number three is going to pay for rental property number three. So you're going to accumulate these. So at year 9, okay, so rental property 4 is year 4, but at year 9, a complete year now of starting this entire portfolio journey, you're going to cash flow $19,200 a year. Okay, you're going to, with all these rentals providing you at least $200 a month per door. Okay, for 12 months, you do the math. That's going to be 19.2 grand a year in cash flow, and you're going to accumulate $176,000 in equity. Okay, now again, you've already practiced this, you've already done all this, and you have 176 grand in equity that you can now tap into to do additional properties with. So there's so much there that you can do. And you're going to be like, well, Austin, how do I tap into this equity? Normally, you have 3 different things. Okay, you have a cash out refinance. Cash out refinance is kind of like what we touched on earlier, where you take that equity out. So in this case, if we're looking at property number 1, I will take $13,000 out of that home, and I'll get a new mortgage. Okay, now the con here is the mortgage is reset. So if I'm doing a 30-year mortgage, I now have to reset that mortgage for 30 years. Usually the interest rate is maybe a little higher, so it'll affect your cash flow a little bit. That's why we do conservative numbers, okay? And you take that 13 grand and you do exactly what we talked about for rental number 1. That is one way of taking equity out of your home. Another one is just a second mortgage. You hear people this all the time. I need to take out a second mortgage, blah, blah, blah. You just take out a second mortgage and you can tap out of the equity that way. The third way is a HELOC, okay? A home equity line of credit. A HELOC, I wouldn't necessarily recommend doing for something very, very long term, because what a HELOC is, a lot of people use HELOCs for when they need short-term money that they can pay off. Okay, so that's more along the lines of fixing and flipping homes, stuff like that, because it's basically the bank just gives you this credit card. And so say if you have $13,000 in equity that you can tap into, they'll just give you a credit card with a $13,000 limit, and then you swipe it, you can get supplies or whatever you need to fix and flip homes, and then you pay it off because the interest rates are usually a little higher, whatever. But you normally don't want a revolving balance on a HELOC, right? So you're not really going to do that for long-term rentals. So you'd really either look at a cash-out refinance or just a second mortgage altogether. Let me look at these questions here. So Kurt says, how do you increase your debt ceiling to buy more properties? Again, beautiful question, okay? So that's where I want people to have realistic expectations, where throughout this spreadsheet, right, you're still making money. You're still building your net worth in other ways. You're still investing. You're throughout that time, right? You could be in a 9-to-5 job where you're getting raises. You could have a side hustle that has by year 8 scaled into an actual business. I mean, there's so many things that you could have done to increase your yearly revenue that helps with that debt ceiling, right? But you're also paying that debt down. So this is just a snapshot. But every single year you're paying that debt down, so that debt ceiling isn't like exponentially increasing, because you're taking on properties that, while you're taking on properties, you're making more every single year, because statistically, right, every single year you should be making more money, especially if you're an investor. If you're an investor and you're not making more money every single year, either singularly or exponentially, you're probably doing something wrong, right? So you need to make sure you're constantly monitoring that as well, where you're looking at your tax returns. Okay, how much did I make this year before? Just look at all that, right? So you shouldn't be using this spreadsheet as a snapshot of where you are now as a person and as an investor, because that obviously, yeah, if you're making the same amount of money every single year, year over year, you're going to need to do something more, right, of increasing your net worth and your revenue and your cash flow, so that way you can get these properties. And as soon as you do those residential loans, it doesn't really matter anymore, right? All the properties I had was residential loans where I needed W-2s, where I had to have, some type of consistent income. That was the military for me. So, but now I don't, right? I do YouTube. I have that stuff that pays for that stuff already, and it's not like they're going to come back and be like, "Do you still have a 9 to 5 job?" No, no, they don't. They don't care anymore. As long as they're getting their paychecks every single month, they're fine. um, Zone two says you're just titling the property in someone else's name. You just have to, yeah, yeah, absolutely. Are you keeping the utilities in your name to keep the property from being leaned against? No, the utilities, everything like that. They're it's fine. I mean, I get what you're saying as far as like a tax lien. So like if what zone two is talking about. So it's like if your tenant like didn't pay the utility bill that month or something, that's where you have to have a good property manager, right? So how I work it, and this is just getting into the weeds, right? But how I do it for utilities is my property management company manages all of that, okay, including the utility bill, the water bill, whatever. And if they don't pay that, the local county will notify my property management that they didn't do that, and then that gets remedied. Okay, so at the worst of the worst, I would have to just front that utility bill if they get evicted or whatever. But yeah, the utilities are in the tenant's names, not mine. So that way they pay it. I never worry about utilities or anything like that because I invest for passive income. I don't invest for a job. Let's see. Yeah, that's about it though. I wanted to make sure this was about an hour long. I didn't want this to be like a whole classroom seminar where I took your entire afternoon on Sunday. Zach, did you have any other questions?
I think that you did a phenomenal job explaining everything. I mean, again, this is a massive overview of kind of the
Oh
different
yeah.
strategies. So perhaps in the future we can do deep dives on specific things like what you specifically do, or maybe we can get on an expert that's specific to like wholesaling or long-term rentals or whatever strategy expert, or somebody that's much more familiar with a specific strategy. I think that could be something that's really, really valuable for a lot of people.
Yeah, yeah. I'll reach out to my friends that like each one are really good in those areas, so we could probably get them on there. I just got to tell them how to work Discord because most of them don't use Discord. But yeah, yeah, and absolutely, everybody. This was just a 10-foot overview, right? Or 10,000 foot overview. Like this was just a complete how to get started into real estate. And that's why I really implore you all. If you didn't take notes, just re-listen to this. But if you did take notes, look at your notes of everything I told you to take notes at, and do more deep dives yourself, right? Because I can give you all the information possible, and we could definitely do this in the future. But this is where you really learn about yourself, right? Because when you're looking at each one of these ways to put money into real estate and scale real estate from a dollar of just putting your money into a REIT into a full blown freaking rental property, you really learn who you are and how you like to invest. Because how Paul Dutton likes to invest into real estate might be different from Pigeon Guy. And Pigeon Guy likes to wholesale because he likes to talk on the phone and make deals happen, while Plexi over here likes to just put their money into a buy and hold rental property. But buy and hold, but Plexi knows that buying hold rental property takes on debt to their name, and they don't want to take on any more debt to their name. So Pi, they like to do syndications, because syndications, you can just put money and give it to somebody, and they make you passive income, but you don't take on the debt. You know what I mean? So there's so many different ways out there, and you need to figure out what is good for you all.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's really good advice. And last question is, how do you rug a rental property? As a landlord.
Well, see, that's the beauty of rental, right? Is we have a lot of regulations. So if you want to be a bad player in real estate, you're gonna be behind bars pretty soon. It
Unruggable.
can be done.
But yeah, no, this is
Let's
awesome.
get a round
This
two and
is
pick a
awesome.
property together and follow your journey with that one. Hey, that'd be great.
Yeah, yeah, that'd be super cool. And I'm actually looking. I'm still debating on which area I want to go to, because I want to at least sometime in the next year, maybe 2 years, move somewhere probably more south of Minnesota. I'm not a big fan of the winter, but I'll be down south touring some properties sometime soon. So maybe we can do like a follow along with that and how that goes. Because like Austin was saying, you buy a house, live in it for a year, rent it out, move on to the next one because that's when you're legally allowed to, and then, or at least with an FHA loan, I should clarify.
Yeah.
And then keep compounding that. Do property a year until you decide to settle down and just go straight rental from there. But that's kind of my plan. We could do a follow along or something like that. I know that's way out in the distant future, but it could be fun.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely, man.
But yeah, anything else to add? Otherwise, I think we're at a good stage to wrap it up.
We should track it on Austin's channel. Yeah. Well, funny enough, I had a series that I'm still doing, right? But real estate's very slow. I have a series that I am very excited to keep updating on once I get more beneficial information to make a whole video on. But I'm taking passive income net, okay, net passive income from DeFi, and I am plugging it into a rental property. It's going to happen. I just have to make sure it's a good one and it makes sense. But after, obviously I pay the crypto taxes and then the taxes, I put money aside for the IRS and all that stuff. It's going to happen. It's going to be freaking awesome when I do it. It's going to be a really good video.
Exciting stuff.
Yeah, we'll do a vlog for sure. Bro, I'm always down. I'm always down to travel. Especially Texas. I love Texas.
I'm down to go to Texas.
San Antonio is where it's at, though. I like properties in San Antonio and Austin. Austin's a good place to get properties there. I don't know about Dallas.
Of course. Yeah, Dallas doesn't have Austin in the name, so you can't do it.
Yeah, that's not that good. Hey, but I appreciate you having me on. I got to get back to getting this video out for tomorrow. Oh, yeah, and I'm also starting a little 10-minute podcast, 5 to 10-minute podcast, very, very short, little snippets, once a week on my Twitter page. Okay, I'm going to share the link right now, actually. So if anybody wants to it's going to be called Mindset Monday. All right, and it's going to have some real estate in it, right? But the giant, you guys will figure out what the giant is very soon. But if you want to set your reminder just to go listen to that, it's going to be 7:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time every single morning, but it's going to be recorded. So if it's like different between time zones, go check it out, right? Have some fun, get some mindset every single week.
Yeah.
Wake the giant. I like that. Hashtag wake the giant. Yeah.
Gotta make that hashtag go viral.
Bro, the giant's going to wake soon. It's going to be great. Wake the giant. I like it. That's a shirt. That's merchandise.
It's going to be great. It's going to be good. But yeah, I appreciate everybody tuning in as well as Austin hosting.
All right. Thanks for having me on, Zach. Y'all have a wonderful Sunday.
Yeah. Take care, everybody.